God bless everyone. So I am Pamela B. Valley, a second year BSB student. So for today's video is I will going to discuss to you the chapter 2 of the natural law of St. Thomas Aquinas. So at the end of this module is I will going to, or at the end of this discussion is we will be recognize the meaning of natural law and its relation to ethics, explain how natural law is an imprint of the divine will on the free person. And the third one is to appreciate and articulate the rule of natural law in crafting an ethical life. And lastly is to discuss conscience and how this is defined by natural law. Before we are going to proceed to our discussion, let me tell you first the background of St. Thomas Aquinas. So St. Thomas Aquinas is an Italian Catholic priest who belonged to the religious order of preachers or Dominicans. So St. Thomas Aquinas was born in 1225 to an affluent and influential family because his father was recognized as the Count of Aquino, which belonged originally to the Kingdom of Naples and about 120 kilometers south of Rome. So his early studies were under the tutelage of Benedictine Abbot of Monte Cassino, but at the age of 14, he enrolled at the University of Naples. And at the age of 19, in 1244, Thomas decided to join the order of preachers instead of Benedictines, who were his first teachers. And in 1248, Thomas studied with Albert the Great in 1205 to 1280 in Cologne, and because of Albert recognized him as genius, Albert thought Thomas would him to the University of Paris. So Thomas later became the master of theology in this university in 1256. And the remaining of 18 years of his life were spent on lectures, instructions, writing, and quadlibets. And Thomas died on March 7, 1274, leaving behind his notable works like Summa Contra, Gentiles, Summa Theology, and De Veritate. So the Catholic Church honored him as a doctor, a title given to saints who are recognized as a giver of particularly important insights in the understanding of Christian doctrine of faith. Let's proceed to the Este Dios non daritur. So Thomas Aquinas begins from the standpoint of faith. So his perspective presupposes the existence of a God who is the author or the source and the goal, the end of all the reality. So the human being that is said to be gifted with the ability to know the highest good that engages him or her in freedom in choosing to act on the good that he or she ought to do. So human freedom for a sense, Thomas therefore is an imprint of the divine will in the very being of the human person. So for St. Thomas, he stated that his perspective presupposes or involves the existence of God, who is the author or source and the goal end of all the reality. So since God created us, reflected to the personality on him. So we have to make sure that we have to share the goodness with others. We have to be fair and know how to manage the things that God created. So we have the ability to know the highest good that engages our freedom in choosing to act on the goal that we ought to do. So we have the ability to distinguish what is right and wrong. So it is because according to St. Thomas Aquinas, it is already imprinted in our heart. And we have the ability to think and use that ability in accordance with the natural law, or what we call the divine will of God. Thomas Aquinas also stated here that Este Dios non daritur is an expression that highlights the validity of this ethical system with or without faith in the Creator God. So literally, Este Dios non daritur means even if there is no God, where he believed that even though you are not Christians, even though you don't believe in a certain religion, or whatever status you have, community you belong, and even if you don't believe in the existence of God, you still do good things and avoid bad things because it is already your ability to do good, because it is a natural law that God imprinted in our heart and mind. So it is within you. It is already marked your deepest heart. So it is your ability to decide on a certain situation, on making responses in goodness. So Thomas pointed out that even if there is no God, you still have the ability to do good, and it is the natural law of being a human being to do what is good.
Conscience and natural law. So the ability of man to know is important in his or her acting ethically. Hence, if one follows to St. Thomas' discussion on conscience, one is inclined to conclude that it is the proper functioning of reason in moving the human person towards an end goal that is fitting of his or her dignity. So one cannot do the right thing if one does not know what it is. And the famous dictate then to follow the conscience absolutely is tied to an obligation to educate it. And for St. Thomas, conscience absolutely binds us in doing the good and avoiding evil. So conscience as reason is also absolutely tasked to be given permission. So here, St. Thomas believed that conscience will help us in terms of doing the proper function as a person that would be able to have the goal in life that we also want, which is fit our personality. And conscience is absolutely tied to an obligation to educate it, and it is not an excuse of being ignorant. For St. Thomas Aquinas, not knowing is not an excuse at all, because you are obliged by it to know and to learn something, to look for an answer and to find for a solution. Because if one acts badly out of ignorance and does not act to rectify the situation, by bothering to learn, so that person is to be held accountable according to the angelic doctor of St. Thomas Aquinas. So there are four different kinds of conscience that may lead us to wrongdoing: the callous, the perplexed, the scrupulous, and the ignorant. So the first one is the ignorant. Ignorant is the uninformed conscience. It is the lack of education. While perplexed, this one needs guidance in sorting out one confusion. And the callous or the callousness of the conscience, it is the result in the long-time persistence in doing evil that the self is no longer concerned whether what he or she does is good or bad. And the scrupulousness is this one is fails to trust one's ability to do good, and hence overly concerns itself with avoiding what is bad to the point of seeing wrong where there is really none. So this kind of conscience is you have that too much care that you fails to trust one's ability to do good. Callous and scrupulous here are binary opposites, but both are malformed in being too lax or too strict. So these different consciences that lead to badness in action can readily be recertified by education. So putting effort in can readily be recertified by education. Putting effort in forming one's own conscience helps a person to exempt from such malformation. St. Thomas also believed that conscience remains to be our proximate norm that bids us to do good and avoid evil. Simply put, going against one's conscience is doing the contrary of the dictate of what one knowingly elects as good. So because of the extent of what one knows, it determines what is the good to be done and the evil to be avoided. So the self is obliged to act accordingly. So you have to learn and educate on what to do. So now let's proceed to the three contemporary questions. So there are relevant questions that can help the Filipino student appreciate the domestic natural law. So these three questions that originated from the writing of Alasdair Macintyre can be appropriated to highlight the relevance of Aquinas today. The first one is the who am I, the second one is who do I want to be, and the last one is how can I get there. So who am I? So who am I is the domestic natural law interrogates the identity of the human person. So if one is endowed with his or her own facticity, history, and abilities, his or her present reality is accessible to him or her through self-knowledge and reflection. So this task in knowing the self is the point of departure for the task of building up the identity of the human person. So the second one is who do I want to be? So the human person's self-knowledge is dynamic. That is, it is always open to the direction set by what one wants to make of himself or herself. So self-knowledge here is malleable towards self-determination. Decisions are the basis of one's freedom in choosing what one wants to be. So given this knowledge of himself or herself and the ability to evaluate his or her options and possibilities, the self can also better give direction to himself or herself. And the last one is how can I get there? So this is fully utilizes the sound judgment of human reason and evaluates the best route to get to the goal decided upon. So this question breaks down the task to be done into the particulars of actions and daily routine. So self-knowledge and self-determinations here are bridged by self-governance. So goal setting through reason and decision is complemented by the ability to freely move the self and command the body in action. So the self is not only a passive receiver of what transpires externally. This is one designs the path and cooperates with the situation to reach the end that has been reasonably set by the self. So now let's proceed to the relational and perfection of love in Aquinas. So aside from the definition, St. Thomas Aquinas said that even if we are not faithful, even if we do not belong to a certain religion, we have the ability to do good because it is a natural law of being a human being, and we are afforded the autonomy of the reasonable ethics independent from faith. So the autonomy of ethics from faith afforded a level of discipline, reflection that enables man to not only copy the perfection that is God and apply it to himself or herself and her surrounding. So the independence that is given to the ethical order also allows the human person, in particularity, to be himself or herself as the singular subject that he or she is. That is, through personal reflections, decisions, goal setting, and praxis, the human person attains the full realization of who or he is. So in this sense that the human being is not merely a stand in the creator God, and as a human being, we have the freedom to choose. So we are not created like a machine according to St. Thomas. We have independent in ourselves to do those ethical things and to be that specific person that we want to be in reality. So though we still have freedom, but we still have limitation for we have different weaknesses and strength also. And according to St. Thomas also is, we as a human being designed not to be perfect alone. So we open to be in all and exist for all. So St. Thomas in terms of perfection of love is you should have not to be selfish. We have to consider people around us. We have to understand the relationship, that love that we can give to people around us. And that is our purpose, and we have to value it. So perfection of love is not about doing good things because of ourselves alone, but because of other people as well. So all in all, Santa Mazakinas remind us that doing a good things to the other people is very important, and also to the perfection of love that we can give to other people. And that's all for today. Thank you and God bless you.